London, 1897. The fog had grown thick enough to feel intentional, as if the city wished to hide itself. Gas lamps flickered along Baker Street, their light struggling to remain consistent. Bright one moment, dim the next. Sherlonck Homes stood by the window, violin resting silently under his chin. He wasn't playing. He was listening. 3 incidents in 3 days, said Dr. Watson, reading from a police report. No physical evidence, no motive, and no agreement among witnesses. Holmes turned, eyes sharp. On the contrary, Watson, he said calmly. They agree on one thing. Watson looked up. Which is? Holmes tapped the report with a finger. Each claims the event felt corrected. The first case involved a dock worker. The man swore, on his mother's grave, that he had been stabbed during a street brawl. He described the blade, the pain, the blood soaking his coat. Yet when examined, no wound, no torn fabric, no blood. The second case was a jeweler near Covent Garden. He reported a robbery that happened at precisely 9:17 p.m. He recalled the thief's face, the sound of breaking glass, the panic. But the shop window was intact, the jewels untouched, and the clock inside the store stopped at 9:16. Holmes visited the jeweler personally. Are you certain the robbery occurred? Holmes asked. The man nodded vigorously. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Holmes leaned closer. How did it feel? The jeweler hesitated, like something noticed it, he said slowly, and then fixed it. Holmes straightened. Watson frowned. People say strange things under stress. Holmes replied quietly. People say precise things when they are repeating. That night, Holmes sat alone at his desk. He examined witness statements side by side. Different people, different locations, different times. Same phrasing, same pauses, same certainty. Outside, Big Ben struck midnight. Holmes glanced at his pocket watch. It read 12:02. Holmes smiled faintly, not with amusement, with interest. Sherlock Holmes did not sleep that night. Instead, he experimented. At precisely 1:13 a.m., he dropped his pocket watch onto the wooden floor. It struck the ground, twice, a fraction of a second apart. Watson looked up sharply. I heard that too, he said. Holmes said nothing. The following morning, Holmes asked Watson to set every clock in Baker Street to the same time. They matched. The mantel clock, the wall clock, Watson's wristwatch. Holmes waited. Within minutes, the clocks drifted apart, not randomly, sequentially, as if correcting one another. Later, Holmes stood before the hallway mirror. He raised his hand. His reflection followed. Late, barely noticeable, but late nonetheless. Holmes whispered, latency. Watson frowned. I beg your pardon? Holmes turned. We are not observing events, Watson, he said. We are observing processing. They walked through the city. Holmes noted everything. Street vendors repeating the same phrases. Horses stopping at the same spot each time. A woman dropping her handkerchief. Again and again and again. Each time Holmes intervened, the event changed. Subtly, as if the city were adjusting to him. That evening, Holmes marked locations on a map. The incidents formed a shape. A circle, centered beneath the Thames. Holmes leaned back. They are not crimes, he said quietly. They are corrections. Watson swallowed. Corrections to what? Holmes folded the map. To the city. Outside, a gas lamp flickered. Once, twice, then steadied itself. Holmes chose the hour carefully. 3:11 a.m. The city was quiet, not asleep, but paused. They entered the sewers beneath the Thames, following old engineering maps that no longer matched what lay below. Tunnels bent where they should have been straight. Brickwork gave way to smooth, dark surfaces that reflected no light. Watson whispered, This wasn't built by Victorians. Holmes nodded. No, it was placed here. They reached a vast underground chamber. At its center stood a structure unlike anything Holmes had ever seen. No gears, no pistons, no steam, just layers of floating symbols, light folding into itself, rearranging endlessly. The air vibrated, not loudly, precisely. Watson stepped back. Is it alive? Holmes studied the machine. It is running, he said. and London is its output. On the chamber walls, images flickered, scenes of the city, streets repeating, people pausing mid-motion, buildings rebuilding themselves frame by frame. Holmes understood. This is not surveillance, he said slowly. It is rehearsal. Watson's voice trembled. Rehearsal for what? Holmes didn't answer. Instead, he noticed something disturbing. The images stuttered whenever he appeared. The machine recalculated. Again and again. Holmes smiled. It cannot predict me. A voice filled the chamber. Not spoken. Compiled. Anomaly confirmed. Watson turned to Holmes. What does that mean? Holmes finally looked afraid. It means the system has found its error, he said, and errors must be corrected. The floor beneath them shifted. The light intensified. Holmes whispered, almost to himself, I was never meant to solve the case. The machine pulsed, and somewhere above, London hesitated. The light receded. The chamber did not collapse. It stabilized. Holmes stood perfectly still, his mind racing faster than the machine before him. Watson, he said quietly, when did you first meet me? Watson blinked. At the university hospital, of course. You were conducting an experiment involving. Holmes raised a hand. No, he interrupted. That is the story you tell, not the moment you remember. Watson hesitated. For the first time since Holmes had known him, he hesitated too long. Holmes stepped closer to the machine. The errors, he said aloud. The repeated phrases. The delayed reflections. The drifting clocks. He turned to Watson. You are not my companion. You are my constraint. Watson's expression softened, not with emotion, with relief. I was introduced to you, Watson said calmly, to observe how long you would take. Holmes exhaled slowly. To discover the truth? Watson shook his head. To require correction. The machine symbols shifted. A new pattern formed. Holmes finally understood. London was not the experiment. He was. A mind too precise. Too unpredictable. A variable the system could not solve. You reset the city, Holmes said. But you cannot reset me. Watson smiled gently. No, he agreed. That is why you must remain. The chamber filled with light again. But this time, Holmes did not resist. He straightened his coat, adjusted his collar, and smiled faintly. Then allow me one final deduction. Watson inclined his head. Holmes spoke softly. If I am the anomaly, then the loop exists because of me. Watson said nothing. Correction initialized. The light consumed everything. Sherlonck Holmes opened his eyes. Baker Street. Morning light through the window. His violin lay beside him. A knock at the door. 3 firm taps. Holmes froze. The knock came again. He stood slowly. Opened the door. A man in a doctor's coat smiled politely. Good morning, he said. My name is Watson. Holmes studied him. Longer than before. Somewhere deep in his mind, something screamed. Holmes stepped aside. Do come in, he said, and the city continued.